Madam President, Your Excellencies, delegates, guests, it is an honor to be in this legendary place and to have an opportunity not just to speak to you, but to listen and hear from you what's on your mind, your collective minds, about big questions. Who are we? Where did we come from? And most importantly, where are we going? Many youngsters today suggest to me that they don't feel a great deal of hope about the way things are going in the world. And yet, when you think about it, and I hope you will think about it, if you had to choose a time to be around, to be alive, this is the most important time perhaps in all of human history. And here's why. Never before do we know or have the capacity to understand the nature of the world and our place in it. Never again will we have as good an opportunity as there exists right now to act on that knowledge. Just a week ago, I was halfway across the Pacific, a little island called Midway. It's a protected area, both on the land and in the sea. And I had a chance to meet an albatross, a Mason albatross that is known to be at least 61 years old. Her name is Wisdom. Wisdom is sitting on an egg. Albatrosses have one egg a year. They don't mate until they're 10, 15, sometimes 20 years old. And as Wisdom has pointed out through her life, they can live as long as human beings. They're not alone. There are other creatures like turtles that can live to be a century, sometimes more. Think of what Wisdom and sea turtles and other long-lived creatures, elephants, some whales, have experienced in their lifetime, what I have experienced in mine. More change than during all preceding history put together. When I was a child, the explorations that we now know about the ocean have determined the big, broad characteristics that those who studied the ocean a century ago simply could not know, could not understand, could not see what we now can see. That there are mountain ranges that run like giant backbones down the Atlantic, Pacific, and Indian Oceans. We now know that the maximum depth of the ocean is about as deep down as airplanes tend to fly, about 11 kilometers, 7 miles. And only 2 people have ever been to the deepest part of the sea. 1960, 52 years ago, almost to the day, when Wisdom was just a youngster. Me too. Before most of you in this room were born. A dozen people have been to the moon, hundreds have been up in space, millions fly 7 miles in the sky, 11 kilometers, but what is it that has kept us from understanding the nature of the ocean when we know at least that the ocean is the cornerstone of our life support system? The ocean is not only where most of Earth's water is, 97%, it's where most of life on Earth actually is. And yet, when you think the ocean, people know something about the surface. We can look at it from high in the sky, we can travel over it in boats, we can actually dive into it using newly developed scuba that didn't exist 100 years ago, only began to be common half a century ago. There are now millions of people who can travel as much as, say, 50 meters beneath the surface. But to get even to the average depth of the ocean, let alone the maximum, is still a major operation. You have a chance, those of you in this room, I include myself among those in this room, who have a chance to change the attitude about the liquid part of the planet upon which life depends. Take away the ocean, there is no life on Earth. Take away the ocean, that is a system that drives climate and weather, shapes the chemistry of Earth. It is the backbone of what keeps us alive. And it's not just rocks and water. It's life in the ocean. Life that generates and replenishes the oxygen in the atmosphere, more than half. Some have calculated that it's about 70% of the oxygen in the atmosphere is derived from living creatures in the sea, these little photosynthetic organisms, most of them so small you can't see them if they're in a glass of water. You hold it up, you can't see the source of most of the oxygen. They're microscopic organisms that do the heavy lifting, grabbing carbon dioxide, generating oxygen, making life as we know it possible. But in the time since wisdom was a chick, in the time since I was a youngster myself, more has changed in the ocean than during all preceding human history. At the same time that we've learned more, we've lost more. 90% or so of many of the species of large fish in the sea, tunas, sharks, swordfish, marlin, cod, even many of the small species are simply gone. We're too good at catching them, too good now at taking them from one part of the planet and shipping them to another part of the planet. But now we know what we couldn't know half a century ago. We know that there are limits to what we can do to the natural world and still survive ourselves. Now we know our lives depend on nature. We didn't know until fairly recently that we have the capacity to alter the nature of nature through what we're putting into the atmosphere. Excess carbon dioxide, methane, and other greenhouse gases, but especially CO2, driving a change in the chemistry of the world. Acidification of the ocean is on the trend toward more acid conditions. Bad news for coral reefs already. Not just because of that, but many other factors, including the elimination of many kinds of fish, the shredding of fine-tuned ecosystems in the sea as on the land. We have seen a loss of about half of the coral reefs, or the decline toward a state that is considerably unhealthy. That in just a matter of decades. In the Caribbean, about 80% of the coral reefs are gone, or are in a state of great decline. There are dead zones that have grown up since I was a child around the world. Dead zones being areas in coastal waters that have become so polluted that life has changed, perhaps irrevocably, in places where people have concentrated their activity. So, it might sound as if there are plenty of reasons for despair. But no, the real key is knowing. You can't solve a problem if you don't know that you've got one. And now we know what we couldn't know, what Rachel Carson did not know when she wrote The Sea Around Us in 1951. She knew there were problems on the land and spoke eloquently about it, but she thought, and many thought, policies were made and put into place that suggested the ocean is infinite in its capacity to yield whatever we want to take from it and to use it as a place to dump whatever we don't want close to where we are on the land. But now we know the laws have not caught up. We still have policies that allow fishing in the sea, the taking of wildlife on a level that is simply not sustainable. When you get down to 25, 30, 15, 10% of what was there in a matter of a few decades, you know that that's not sustainable. So all we have to do is look at the records and say, wait a minute, let's think again. And it takes an organization such as this represented here, the voices of all nations, looking at that which is fundamentally important to all human beings, to all life, and that is our life support system, nature. It should be the highest priority to take care of the natural systems that keep us alive. I gave a talk at the World Bank 2 years ago. I put a picture of the Earth in space, that wonderful, most important picture perhaps that's ever taken, and I said, there it is, the World Bank. And we have been drawing down the assets through all our history of humankind. Think of it. We are depleting the capacity of Earth to support us, to sustain us. But now we know it isn't too late. We still have time. We still have 10% of the turtles, 10% of the tunas, 10% of the sharks. Not all of the ocean is a dead zone yet. We still have time as long as we know, as long as we care, as long as we can still breathe on this little blue speck in the universe. I think sometimes about the alternatives people dream up. Well, we can always jump ship, go off to Mars, and set up housekeeping there. Or we know about new planets that are being discovered elsewhere in the universe. But the big question is, how do you get there? And where's the water? Where's the life that makes the whole system work in our favor? When things look like they aren't going the way we'd like, there is sometimes a plan B, but there is no plan B. It's here, this blue speck in the universe. I wish I could take all of you out right now to descend, not just to 50 meters, not just to 100 meters, but to go from the sunlit, sparkling blue waters of the surface down through the area where it's dark all of the time, except for the flash, sparkle, and glow, the luminous creatures that have their own living light. It's there to be done. Don't let your life slip by without taking the plunge. My mother waited until she was 81 to jump into the ocean with mask and flippers and take a look at where most of life on Earth actually lives, occurs, and to gain some appreciation for the magnitude of what is there in terms of diversity, resilience, and so on. There are other creatures, like wisdom, like turtles, like whales, that, like humans, may understand that the world has changed during their lifetime. But they don't know why. They don't know what to do about it. We know why. We can figure out what to do about it. It is a global challenge. There are global solutions. All of you have a chance in your lifetime to have a magnified impact on everything that follows. It is a race. It's a race based on what we know about, what we care about, and what we can do. Likely in the next 10 years, perhaps the most important time in the next 10,000 years. There's plenty of reason for hope. Nations around the world are beginning to embrace wild places in the sea as never before. Before the middle of the 20th century, there were no places that were designated, as we have come to understand the importance of designating places on the land. About 14% of the land has some protection in terms of national parks and wildlife areas. It isn't just for creatures that are there, though it is for us. We're all sea creatures in the sense that we all need the ocean. Without the ocean, it isn't just whales and turtles and polar bears that can exist. We can't either. But we know this, and we can, on our time, on your watch, do what Jane Goodall has suggested as reasons for hope: the human mind, the human spirit, the resilience of nature, but most importantly, that power that is so obviously represented in this room. And that's the youngsters coming along, you, with fresh ideas, with the knowledge that it's your future that you have in your hands, with powers that no generation before has ever had, and an opportunity that not only is as never before, but owing to the magnitude of the changes that we're facing on all fronts, this is an opportunity that may never come again. Thank you.